Hello friends! Today we are going to be talking about two games that share a lot of similarities. Valorant and Counterstrike. Now, I played a lot of old Counterstrike back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I mean very, very back in the day. But I played a lot and I played competitively, and I knew the game very well. And then someone recommended that I play Valorant, citing that it draws a lot of the same concepts of Counterstrike. And they were very much right. Aside from the ability to have unique characters that have special abilities, something that I thought of more in the vein of the character shooter like Overwatch, it still plays more like Counter-Strike in terms of what your plans are, what your sight lines you're trying to lay out and acquire, in terms of the time to kill, and most importantly in terms of weapon accuracy and weapon style. And that's what I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk about the weapons of Counter-Strike and the weapons of Valorant. Specifically the similarities between the two, because there are a lot of them. But more importantly, the differences between the two, because the differences between the two are actually very telling of the game design that went into the latter one. Now, the original Counter-Strike came out in, I want to say 2001-ish? And I played it mostly from the 2001, 2002, 2003, in the very early, like 1.5, 1.6 era. The very beginnings of it. And let's see here. Biggest thing we want to do today is discuss the weapons of both games. Now, in a game like Valorant, it's very fast to kill somebody. The time it takes to kill somebody is usually well under a second. It's one shot. Hold on. It's usually like 1 second. Shot to the head, dead. That's all it takes to kill somebody in a game like this. One brief shot to the head, and somebody is going to take 78, 156. The maximum health is 150, so 2 shots to the head, kills with the basic free gun in the game. 4 to 6 shots center of mass. And this is with one of the weakest weapons in the entire game. So, first of all, I want to talk about the pistols. And we're going to start with the pistols in Counter-Strike. What they did, what they are, what sets them apart. And I'm going to be talking about Counter-Strike Classic and Counter-Strike Source. I'm not going to be talking about the additional weapons added in CSGO. CSGO added a lot of new weapons, which honestly is good. I'm glad they did that. I think it works well. I think those weapons are very effective and, well, they round out the arsenal. But specifically today I want to talk about the classic ones, and because that's what Valorant plays off of. They play off of the classic set of weapons. So, what are they? In Counter-Strike, you have the K&M 45 Tactical, which is the equivalent of this pistol here. In Counter-Strike, this gun is your stock weapon for one faction. There's 2 separate factions. The terrorists and the counter-terrorists. The counter-terrorists start with this pistol. And if you right-click, the alternate fire gives you a silencer. And I'm going to already side topic here. I'm already going to tangent because this is a very good tangent to have because it's going to be important for defining the rest of the guns in both games. A silencer in Counter-Strike means that you make less noise. That might sound obvious, and it is, but stick with me here. I'm building up to something. I'm working on something here. So the Counter-Strike pistol silencer reduces the amount of noise that the weapon makes, and as a result, enemies that are farther away can't hear it. However, in Valorant, you actually receive a ping on your minimap anytime somebody shoots a weapon. Now, the existence of a minimap itself is something I'll touch on more later, but you will actually get a ping on your minimap telling you that you heard noise at X location. Or rather, I'm sorry, someone on your team heard X noise at X location. So if I'm over here and I shoot somebody, someone over the wall will see on their map, right about here, a question mark saying, hey, somebody made noise here. In Counter-Strike, you didn't get that. Now, what that makes a difference for is that in Valorant, that ping doesn't exist for silent weapons. It means that your opponents do not get a map ping notifying of your location. So, right out of the gate, you have a difference here, and we're going to talk about the Counterstrike weapons first, and then we'll get into the Valorant weapons. So you have a pistol here. The weapons do roughly very similar damage to their Valorant counterparts, but the pistol does simple damage, decent damage on headshots, and has a silencer. Then you have the Glock. It's a Glock. I mean, back when I played, it was actually even called Glock, because I played before they added the updates to remove the original names of weapons because of legal reasons. Anyways, it's a small 9mm gun. It has a much larger ammunition pool. It goes all the way up to 20, I want to say. Yep, 20 round magazine. And fires much faster, basically as fast as you can press the trigger. As quickly as you can press the trigger, you will fire the gun. And then you have an interesting gun, the 228 Compact. This gun is in many ways identical to the basic gun, to the basic 45 tactical. The 228, it has, I think it has 13 rounds as opposed to, where's the rounds? Yeah, 13 rounds as opposed to the 12 that's in this one, I believe. Confirmed. And just does a bit more damage. It effectively is the same gun, just with a slight numbers increase. And I want to bring that up because that's going to be something we'll see later in the other Counter-Strike weapons in other classes. It fills roughly the same role as the 45 Tactical. Then you have my favorite gun, the 5.7, which is named after the 5.7. Even with the licensing change, they kept the name of the gun because that's just what it's called. The 5.7 fills a different role than the other pistols. It's more similar to the Glock in the fact that it has a very high-capacity magazine. I believe it goes up to 30 rounds. And it is an armor-piercing pistol. So you have a pistol that can shoot through armor. Or at least mitigate some of the effects of armor, is what I should be saying. The pistol's ability to... having a pistol, which is a low-cost weapon, that can ignore armor, which is something that you buy when you have more money, is a very interesting mentality shift. It's a weapon for people who are behind. If you're behind in the game, if you are doing poorly, you can buy a 5.7 and say, okay, my opponents are doing better, they have better weapons than me. I'm not going to be able to beat them straight up. But I might be able to mitigate some of that. It also bridges the gap between pistols and submachine guns. By having a 30-round magazine, by firing very quickly, and by being surprisingly accurate, it is a bridge between the small pistol weapons and the larger, heavier weapons. Then you have the Nighthawk. It's a Desert Eagle. It's a deagle. This is the Desert Eagle. I think that most people here will recognize what the Desert Eagle is. Then the Desert Eagle is the capstone for pistols. The capstone for pistols does the most damage, is also the most accurate on the first shot. I believe it has perfect accuracy on your very first shot. It does drastic damage, and enough that it will straight up guarantee a kill on a headshot. So very high damage, and is a good backup weapon. And I'll talk about backup weapons in a moment. Well, I'll talk about it right now. Another use for the pistol is that you can have a pistol and your primary weapon. So if you have a sniper rifle, for example, if you have a sniper rifle, it's not going to do a whole lot close quarters. And having a backup weapon as pistol that you can pull out in the middle of a fight can save you, can save your bacon. And so if you are extra rich, it might even be worthwhile to buy this pistol, even if you have a quote-unquote real gun, even if you have a primary weapon. Hello, Pack Tactics. Hello. I forgot to say hello to everybody. Hello, Sapphire, and Tuzzy, and Kyrix, and Radar, and Connor. It's good to see everybody here. So, the difference here between these guns... Oh, I should talk about the elites. The dual elites also bridge the gap between pistols and submachine guns. The dual elites function as pistols, and they fill the pistol slots. So you can actually have them as well as your primary weapon. But they're really just a semi-automatic submachine gun. You have 15 rounds in each gun, so you have 30 rounds. They do very light damage, and they have basically the same bullet spread and pattern as some of the submachine guns. It's effectively just a semi-automatic submachine gun that you can pick up. So, now let's talk about Valorant, its pistols, and why they're different, and how those differences affect gameplay. Now, right out of the gate, there is no factions in Valorant. Everybody has access to the same weapons immediately. Hello, Frank. Everybody has access to the same weapons at all times, so there's only one default pistol. Minor change, but it's worth pointing out. So, in Valorant, the Classic does not have a silencer. That's been designated into a separate weapon. The silenced pistol is a completely different gun now. And they added an alternate fire because most weapons in Valorant have an alternate fire. In addition to the ability to fire with great accuracy, you also have a right mouse button, burst fire, which makes a little shotgun effect. It's not even like a 3-round burst, it's actually just legitimately 3 instantaneous rounds. Which I think is a very interesting choice on the designer's part for adding versatility to what otherwise would be I don't want to say a useless weapon because it still is it's still a gun, it still works, you can still rack up kills with it, but a weapon that is not intended for late game play, if you understand what I mean. It's not a weapon that's going to be scaling into the rest of the fights. In both Valorant and Counterstrike, you have a pistol round, where the first round of each match, all players can only afford to buy pistols. After that, basically after the first round is over, you're done with that. That mentality is out the window, and you never have anybody buying pistols as their primary weapon unless they are memeing or broke. And neither of which situation is optimal. Neither of those situations are optimal for your team. So, the similarities between this and the 45 are rampant. They're virtually the same gun, minus the silencer, plus the spread shot. But they get more interesting from here immediately, because we have a shotgun in the pistol slot. We can have a primary weapon, and then have a shotgun as a backup. This is very valuable and immediately shows the difference in mentality between the Valorant team and the Counter-Strike team, whereas in Counter-Strike, all the pistols are pistols, with the possible exception of the elites and the elites being a semi-automatic submachine gun, and all the rifles are primary weapons, and all the shotguns are entirely their own class of weapon. Having a backup pistol means that you can have a sniper rifle. You can have a sniper rifle be sniping enemies, and then if enemies get close, you have a up-close and personal option. I like this. I like this from a game design standpoint. I like this from a game philosophy standpoint. I think it is an excellent idea. I really do. It's also dirt cheap. It is $150. Of course, you already have the default gun, so it's still more expensive. It's still $150 more than just using your basic gun. But it's very cheap if you want to grab this to supplement any other medium or long-range weapon. The bullet spread is horrible. I mean, bullet spread is even terrible compared to the regular shotguns, but again, it costs next to nothing and goes in your pistol slot. Then we have the Frenzy. The Frenzy maps onto the submachine guns in Counter-Strike. And Counter-Strike has a lot more guns than Valorant. It might not seem right now while we're talking about pistols, but Counter-Strike has many more guns. And this is a fully automatic pistol. There is a fully automatic pistol in Counter-Strike, however, you must equip it in your main weapon slot. Actually, there's two fully automatic pistols in Counter-Strike, and both of them require your primary weapon slot to be active, to be using it. This, like I was saying before, lets you take a long-range weapon, and it gives you a short-range combat option to back yourself up. Now, realistically, your primary weapon is going to be better in almost every situation. Unless you are using a big sniper rifle and are terrible at using a sniper rifle in close quarters, you probably aren't using this. But in the pistol round, or in a cash strap round, if you are in a cash strap round, having a cash strap weapon is valuable. This is good enough that if you are having a really rough time, you can buy something and still save the majority of your money while still being able to contribute to the team, still being able to be useful. You can still be effective with this. And if you compare that to the 228 Compact, that's not true. The only pistols that are like that in Counter-Strike are the 5.7, which is very much like that. It is the pistol that you pull out to help yourself come back and to have a cheap weapon that can bring you back up to parity against a team that's doing better than you. Like I was saying before, that is a gun that gives you that. And here we have two of them already. The Shorty as a versatility option, the Frenzy as a submachine gun light option. The damage on that, just a couple shots. Remember, 150 is max health with shields, 100 is max without shields. So right here, that's lethal. That's lethal against most opponents. That's lethal against every single opponent in the game. That's all it takes to kill somebody. Yeah, 2 headshots. If you can land 2 headshots, which is not even difficult at range, you automatically get a kill, guaranteed. Which is not bad, especially because of the rate of fire of this thing and a surprisingly good accuracy. Then we have the Ghost. Now, the Ghost is very interesting. The Ghost is extremely similar to the 45 Silenced. It is a silenced gun, and I've already discussed why that becomes significant in this game as opposed to Counter-Strike. It can be useful in both games, but in this game it actually makes a marked difference in how you use it. But it is a better gun. That is to say, it is a straight upgrade over the stock classic gun. This does more damage, is guaranteed to kill in, I want to say, 3 body shots, or 4 body shots. Yeah, in a handful of body shots. It's also absurdly accurate, even at a very long range. Even at an extreme range, you have excellent accuracy, which makes this another viable weapon if you just want to use a pistol in a given round. Now, in both these games, you want to control your shots. I didn't really touch on this because this isn't really the kind of game design I'm going to. I'm focusing more on the specific weapon styles, but in both games, you are less accurate the more often you press the trigger, and that changes for different guns. For here, this gun, you can see how that pulls up very quickly. And for something like this pistol here, it stays fairly accurate but cannot fire as quickly. Okay. And then we have the Sheriff, which is the Desert Eagle, which is the equivalent of the Deagle, and honestly, it's the same gun. For all intents and purposes, the Desert Eagle is the same gun as this one here, as the Sheriff. It's a solid gun. It can do a lot of work. If you have enough money, this can be a backup weapon, so you have a better long-range option. You can use this as a long-range option, and then equip a short-range weapon like a shotgun. This gives you a lot more versatility, and your sidearms become useful weapons in their own right. You see what I'm saying? You see the design philosophy difference? Whereas in Counter-Strike, you have weapons that are more similar and don't really bridge gaps. In Valorant, the weapons bridge the gap between sidearm and main weapon much more effectively, in my opinion. Now let's slide down to shotguns. Now, the shotguns map to each other in a very interesting way. You have the 12-gauge shotgun in Counter-Strike, which is the Bucky in Valorant. It's a gun that shoots many bullets and is very effective at close range. And it's the same in both games. They're virtually the same, but for one key difference. There is a secondary fire on the Valorant version. Now, a shotgun is only effective at close range. It's only supposed to be effective at close range in most situations, but in Valorant, the alternate fire of this gun, that's at 50 meters. Let me bring this up to 20 meters, which is... yeah, we'll go 30 meters. Well outside of shotgun effective range. Look at that spread. That spread is mostly in the first ring. Now, the secondary fire fires fewer bullets. Or fewer shells, pellets is what I mean. So on the right side, there's a regular shot. On the left side, there's the pellet shot. But look at the cluster difference. This shotgun is immediately more useful because of that secondary fire. You are looking at 5 pellets versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 15, 15-ish pellets on the full shot. So it's a third of the potential damage, but enough accuracy that you can use it at an effective range, making it a more versatile weapon. If you wanted that sort of versatility in Counter-Strike, you would need to buy a 228 or a Desert Eagle and have your long and medium range weapon as a completely separate tool to use. Because if you have this, you're simply not getting any real effective shots off. Now, you have the ability to hit accurately at range. And that's interesting and neat. There's the two shots mapped onto each other. So what does that mean from a game design perspective? It means that this weapon can do more. For the same price, this weapon doesn't have the drawbacks that would be otherwise associated with equipping a shotgun. Because equipping a shotgun, well, in most video games, not just Counter-Strike, in most video games, equipping the shotgun gives you the drawback of not being effective at medium range or long range. Now, you're still not going to do anything long range with this thing, but you can be long range with a pistol. So you still have, if you want to be extremely effective at long range, you have another option. Then there's the Judge, which maps onto the auto shotgun in Counter-Strike. The auto shotgun in Counter-Strike... well, first let me talk about why you would use this. This is a weapon that this creates lead. This just covers an entire area. This is not a weapon for people who have accuracy in mind. This is not a weapon for people who want precision. This is a weapon for when you want a lot of lead in a certain direction. And this will give you a lot of lead in a certain direction. And sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes what you need is just, I'm going to have to face off against a bunch of enemies here, and I'm going to want to just not aim. No headshots, all body shots. I'm going to just fire forever. This also gives a good weapon for lower skilled players. I am not saying that only low skilled players use it. Do not accuse me of saying that. That's not what I'm saying, and you know it. What it means is that a lower skilled player can use it and be more effective than they would otherwise be on their own. A player who does not know as much about the game and does not have as good accuracy can equip this gun and say, oh, there's an enemy in this direction. Oh gosh, oh no, I need, okay. And put enough lead in them to help. That's why back when I played it was called the noob cannon. And people would be angry when they died to the noob cannon when professional players bought the noob cannon. Wait, what? Of course. Oh, I can do a little free running course. That's kind of cool. Because professional players will occasionally buy the auto shotgun because sometimes it's the right answer. Sometimes you know there's going to be 3 people coming down this hallway at once, and without doing anything else, all you want to do is go boom, 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 and get 2 to 3 kills. Sometimes that's just what you need to do. Sometimes that's just what things should be. And sometimes you are a worse player, or have motor issues. You might have a motor handicap, in which case, yeah, having a weapon that is going to decrease the skill cap of the game is good, actually. Now, this weapon maps very similarly onto in the two games. In this game, it's a bit more effective. It just does higher damage. In this game, it just hits harder. Aside from that, though, it's the same gun. Now, something I want to show here, let me clear again, is I want you to watch the size of the spread. There's one shot. Now, you saw before how the more you shoot, the less accurate you get. But instead of having it pull up, instead of having the gun pull up, like we saw with the Frenzy here, where we have the gun pulls. Instead of that, the spread increases. The first shot spread is this. The last shot spread is this. Actually, let me see. You know, I think I can actually present this a little bit better. It didn't quite work. Yeah. There we go. There we go. You can see right there the difference in spread size between those two shots. It's significant, but it doesn't pull up. It does not actually make your accuracy worse by making you... Yeah, there's very little pull. And we'll talk about pull more when we get to the proper rifles themselves. But it makes it easier to use. It makes it easier for an inexperienced player, or a player who is in panic motion, or a player who is not trying to think, who's just trying to spray down an area to be effective and to be a valuable member of the team. So the only real difference between this and Counterstrike is potency. But in that potency, I want to talk about the actual design of the weapons themselves and why you are getting them, why you're buying these weapons. So, yeah, talking about the comparisons between the two, but also talking about the game design in general, because I know a lot of my followers are game designers, or in some fashion enjoy game design discussion, and all first-person shooters are going to have similar concerns. They're not all going to go about them the same way, and the weapon set in Valorant or Counter-Strike is going to be nothing like the weapon set in Doom, and it shouldn't be. But knowing why players are picking different weapons and what weapons are good in which situations, this knowledge will map onto a diversity of games and will help you in every game that you are working on or designing or playing or just looking at critically. So that's why I spent that. So that's my justification for spending a whole bunch of words on on shotguns. All right. Next up, we have the submachine guns. The Schmidt machine pistol was a bad gun. I don't know if they've buffed it. I don't know if it has become a better gun, but back when I played, it was just a bad gun. And I loved it because it was really funny to get kills with it, and because everybody would, you know, think it's just bad. Anyways, but it's a silenced gun, and it's a permanently silenced submachine gun. The Ingram MAC-10 is much higher damage output, but much less accurate. The spread on the Ingram is bad, the kick is bad. So when I say kick, I mean that pull. I usually say pull. I'll use both interchangeably, but the kick is this pull up. And just to show you an extreme example, let me spoiler one of the later weapons, just so you can see what kick looks like. I didn't move my mouse at all. My mouse started here, and look where the shots went. That's the pick. That's the pull. That is the kick of the gun. Seriously, I'm going to not move my mouse at all. Watch this. Hello, Hyperwolf. So that is what I mean when I say the pull of the gun or the kick of the gun. So, the MAC-10 has a high kick, but a high rate of fire. The K&M, which is the H&K, of course, submachine gun, is just a very accurate gun. It's very accurate at medium and long range, but still cheap. The biggest thing with the submachine guns is that they are cheap. They don't cost a lot of money. They are good for if you're on a budget, but they are still effective guns. That's the UMP-45 is a bit more expensive, but it functions very similarly to a more accurate... It's basically an upgrade of the MAC-10. It's not as comparable to the K&M. It's closer to the MAC-10 insofar as that it's high damage, decent rate of fire, but it's more accurate, it doesn't pull as much, and it's more expensive. So it's just a linear upgrade between these two. And then you have what is, in my opinion, the most interesting one. The P90, right here, it has a massive magazine size, functions very similarly to an assault rifle. Honestly, it functions similarly to a machine gun, to the high-end machine guns in terms of rate of fire and accuracy, and it's half the price. It's a third of the price, I think, even. And it also uses armor-piercing ammunition. So, this is a budget-heavy weapon. It functions like the high-end machine guns, while only costing a fraction of the price, and not being as good. So if you are on a cash-starved round and you can afford a P90, that might be better, depending on your team comp, depending on your map, depending on what you expect to happen in the round. That might be a good plan. That might be a good play. There are only 2 submachine guns in Valorant. 2. So right here, we're going from 5 to 2. But let's immediately point out that the MAC-10 does map into Valorant. The MAC-10 submachine gun in Counterstrike actually maps onto this pistol, the Frenzy, that I talked about before. This maps very neatly onto the MAC-10, except it's scaled down. Instead of having... It has half the ammo capacity. I think it goes from 24 to 13, roughly. And the damage is actually very similar. And the pull is very similar. But by making it a secondary weapon slot, you can equip it and then buy a sniper rifle, all the fun stuff I talked about pistols before. So right out of the gate, let's say that. We have the MAC-10 right here, and it's in a different slot entirely. Again, making the Valorant sidearms more versatile. Now let's talk the TMP, the machine pistol, the Schmidt machine pistol, which maps onto this weapon called the Spectre. The Spectre is a silenced submachine gun. And it is better. It's not bad in the way the TMP was. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's very accurate on the first couple of shots. The first 3 shots are almost perfect accuracy. And that means a lot, especially when you consider how quickly you can kill. That right there is enough to kill someone twice over. 312 damage when your max HP is half that. Your max HP, again, is 150. That kills. To the body, a lot less, but enough that kills. 7 shots, 6 shots probably, is enough to kill somebody with armor. So, bam. This ends up being a surprisingly effective weapon, and you have the benefit of being silenced, and surprisingly good accuracy. Many guns are much more accurate on their first shot than the 3rd or 4th or sometimes 6th, and that will, even this gun here, the first 2 shots are solid, and then by 5 shots you're climbing to the sky. But this is accurate at a much, much, much farther range. That's a decent clustering for that range. Let's bring this all the way up to the 50-meter mark. As long as you'll ever use in game. It's like the second it starts to pull up, you lose it. But the first couple of shots, you can reliably hit. And that's good. That's important. Which makes this weapon useful. It makes the weapon useful and valuable in a way that the TMP never was. In the way that the silenced machine pistol in Counter-Strike never was. Yep, that is correct, Radar, on all accounts, with your pistol references. It is preferable to fire in 3-round bursts than spray and pray. And that's true, and that is absolutely true. And that's what I was just basically what I was explaining. Yeah, that is correct. And that's true of any gun ever. So of all these weapons here, we've moved this one to a sidearm and we've brought the machine pistol over, and we've brought the machine gun over here, the default machine gun, and that's the Stinger. The Stinger is a budget option, and it's not very accurate. Look at how much... 3 shots, good. Look at how quickly it raised up. So this is a cheap option. This gun actually costs about the same as the Sheriff sidearm. So this submachine gun is actually about on par cost-wise as just a pistol. And this one actually restricts you, so you must fire in burst. If I just hold down the trigger, it still only fires in a 4-round burst. So it actually forces you to fire in burst shots, which is pretty good considering 4 shots is about as much as you can get before you start to get into bad accuracy. So, yeah, the 4-round burst, right there. 5, right there. That's 5, 6, 7 with my aim right here. You can see how quickly the accuracy goes to heck. Now, if you're on the hoof, your accuracy is already going to be terrible. I haven't mentioned that yet, and I'm not going to because most of the time, if you're playing the game, you will never be firing from the hip. You will always be trying to fire from crouch perspectives whenever possible. If you're moving, you're not accurate. Just in general, if you're jumping, you are not hitting the broadside of any barn. You will need to find a new barn. Nothing. And, you know, reasonable. That's a sticking point for most people who pick up the game, though. Most people who start the game try to play the game as if they were playing... Oh, that's actually something I should mention. I'll get to... okay. We'll play the game like you're playing a different first-person shooter, like your Doom clones or things like that, and go try to circle strafe. Try to do the classic circle strafe around an enemy, and try to do something of that nature, and their accuracy will be nothing, and they will get shot in the face. Aim twice, shoot once. That's my recommendation to you. Even at a long range, even well crouched, you can see how the pull happens very quickly. Now, I don't have both games loaded up at the same time, otherwise I would show you side by side how that maps onto the Counterstrike weapons. But I like this as a way of teaching the player. A newer player is more likely to be wanting to lean on a trigger and just keep on shooting. You see how I didn't even hit the target there? Nothing doing on it. But zoomed in, it hits. And this stops the player from being able to overfire. This stops the player from being able to put their gun into a bad position. Because you can't. Unless, I mean, yeah, you can keep on tapping it, and your accuracy will go to heck pretty quickly if you're doing something like that. But the very nature of forcing a burst fire onto the player, the very nature of forcing the player to shoot in burst on a cheap weapon like this, makes the lower skilled players better. If you are worse at the game, you're more likely to have more cash starve rounds as your team loses and you have less money because you keep on dying. You're more likely to be having trouble. If you're more likely to be having trouble, then you're more likely to be buying the cheaper guns like this one. If you're buying a cheaper gun like this one, then you're more likely to need this sort of assistance. Do you see what I'm saying? This gives the player that is using this gun, and again, high-level players can use this gun. I'm not saying that this gun is bad or unusable by high-level players. I'm saying that the game designers thought about the impact the gun would have on lower-level players. By having a lower skilled player using this gun poorly, still aiming down sights, they're going to have that burst shot, and that's going to be all of their good accuracy shots. And they're going to learn, oh, that's what I should be doing on all of my guns. You see? The player naturally will learn, I should be using all of my guns this way, shouldn't I? It teaches the... Huh, that doesn't have a collider. It teaches the player that that's how you play this sort of game. Which is a valuable skill. It's a very, very important one. One that you need to do. Counter-Strike, it was a notoriously difficult game to pick up, partially because of the tough toxic community, which is something I might touch on later on, and what Valorant does to change the community side of things. But also just simply because newer players are given better sets to work with. Also, there's no matchmaking in Counter-Strike back when I played it. I assume there is now. But if you are making a game, think about players of all skill sets. Don't just focus on competitive. I have seen multiple games fail, and multiple games be limited, be lacking, I'll say, because they only thought about their competitive scene and didn't think about low-level play. They didn't think about the newer players who are starting out. I'll be doing full streams about that next time the Go Godot Game Jam comes along. That's going to be next June, I believe. And I'm going to be having lots of discussions on that because I have a lot of opinions on that, and I have a lot of first-hand experience developing for that. So that's something I didn't cover last Game Jam, and I'm going to be covering this one. Someone please remind me that I said this. Because I will forget. But it goes to show the design philosophy of Valorant, and I think contributes to its success. You know, it teaches you how to play the game. This gun teaches you how to play the game better. Next up, we're going to talk about rifles, and as usual, we will talk about the Counter-Strike ones first. Now, oddly enough, some of these guns didn't exist when I played Counter-Strike. I played all the way back in 1.5. The Clarion and the Defender weren't even in the game. They were added later. And these two rifles are good additions. These are good additions that are fill out to cheaper rifles. The Clarion and the Defender, which is a FAMAS and... I don't know what that is, actually. Are budget rifles. One for the counter-terrorists and one for the terrorists, because once again, we have a split faction in Counter-Strike where players are using different options. So some of the players are going to be using the Clarion if they're playing the counter-terrorist side, and some players are going to be using the Defender. So, yeah. These are your budget option. They do decent damage output at decent accuracy, but are just scaled down. Like we saw with the Ingram and MAC-10, like we saw with the 45 and the 228, like we see... Oh, did I... Like with the 5.7 and the Dual Elites somewhat. Like we see with a lot of other variations. These are very similar rifles with different scaling, with just different sliders. The AK-47 here is one of the most powerful weapons in the game, and one of the most inaccurate. It will start pulling very, very quickly, and that pull is going to make the gun extremely difficult to use in the hands of a new player, but extremely effective in the hands of a skilled one. And then you have the M4A1, the carbine, which is, this is for the terrorists, and this is for the counter-terrorists. The counter-terrorist gun is similar to the AK, but more accurate, more reliable. When I say reliable, I'm referring to the kick on it. And more feature-rich. This has a silencer. You can put a silencer on the carbine. Right mouse button, put it on. Right mouse button, take it off. Same rifle, but it makes it a little bit less damaging and makes your shots quieter. Then you have the Bullpup, which is the AUG, which is my favorite rifle in the game. It is a rifle with a scope. And we're going to start talking about scopes real quick. The Bullpup rifle has a scope that has a 2x zoom, as does the Krieg, Both of these are higher damage, lower rate of fire guns. They hit harder and are more accurate, but don't fire as much lead. And like I said before, there are some times where just sending a bunch of ammunition downfield is what you need, where what you need is to just unload as much damage as possible. There are 4 rifles in Valorant, down from 6. But again, we can kind of map the AK and the carbine into one. We can kind of map the Defender and the Clarion into one. We can, because those are, just different faction weapons. So let's talk about what Valorant does differently. So the differences here is you have a budget option, you have a high effectiveness, high skill option, and then a medium range, an option for a medium to long range. You can take down a sniper with a Bullpup. You can take down a full distance sniper with the Krieg with decent accuracy. And in here we only have 4. Let's start with the Bulldog. The Bulldog maps very neatly onto the FAMAS. In fact, in the stock model, which is what I'm using here, you can even see... One sec. Where's my arrow? Do I not have my arrow in here? Give me one brief moment. You can even see right here, this has that same oval cutout as the FAMAS has, as the Clarion has. They very clearly modeled it after the same gun. So what does this do? It shoots bullets. What do you expect? And now that we're actually onto rifles, that's how much it takes to kill. One headshot does enough damage to kill without armor. One headshot does 115 damage. And again, base health is 100, max health is 150. 2 headshots guarantees kill. 1 headshot and 1 body shot guarantees a kill. So boom, boom, guarantees on anything. So that's the power level we're looking at. We're looking at the point of weapons where anything dies in just a couple hits. Anything will die nearly instantly. So, what does this do differently? What did Valorant do to change the core design of the Clarion? It's the same thing they did with the Stinger. This right here costs 2k, and these ones here, which are the equivalent of the... Well, I'll get to them later, but they're the equivalent of the Counterstrike weapons, are much more expensive. The Bulldog is the budget rifle, but it's a good rifle. But as a budget rifle, it's going to be more likely that it's being picked up by lower skilled players, by players who are struggling, by players who are currently feeling outclassed. And guess what it does? Guess what it does? 3-round burst. And look at the accuracy on that. All right, let me clear. And let me send this all the way out to max range. This is farther than you will ever want to use this rifle. Max range, that's how close the cluster is in 3 rounds. Now, if I shoot without that, yep, it's the same cluster on 2 shots. Look at that. Let me clear again. Right there, you can see 3 shots are fairly close, but the last one is starting to trail up very heavily. Right there, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is all the way up high. You can see how much of an effect the pull has after 3 shots. And they said, well, newer players are more likely to be using this. Players who are struggling are more likely to be using this. Now, and again, professional players will use this as well. This is a weapon that can see high-level play. It's not a bad weapon, but a new player is going to be learning a lot about how you should be shooting with every gun in the game. So when they buy a Vandal, when they buy a Phantom, when they buy an Ares, they are getting a gun that doesn't hold their hand, but still gives them... Yeah, builds on the knowledge. That's what I'm trying to say. They're getting a weapon that builds on the knowledge that this weapon has given them. Which is to say, 3 body shots kills. 1 3-round burst to straight center of mass is enough to kill. It's a really good design. Actually, one of the shots missed on that one. But this is max range. You're not going to fight at this range anyways. realistically, you're going to be fighting at this range, in which case, easy shots and pretty easy headshots. Alright, now we're going to be skipping the Guardian for a moment because the Phantom maps almost perfectly onto the Carbine. The Phantom is the good accuracy, good rate of fire, it's just a good gun, folks. It's just a good gun. And it comes silenced, which was an option on the Carbine. And instead of reducing the amount of damage by silencing it, they just made it cost the same as the Vandal, which is the equivalent of the AK. I'll talk about the Guardian later, because I have a lot to say about it. The Vandal and the Guardian, the Vandal and the Phantom are the exact same cost. Both are 2.9k. The Phantom is silenced and more accurate at a longer range. And if you're going down to single shot, which you can do, look at that cluster. Look at that cluster. And yes, you can pull that off in the middle of a match. That is something that you are allowed, I guess, to do. I can rack up damages on this all day. You can use a 30-round clip to get 30 kills. That's actually entirely possible. That is actually possible to just rock up kills like that. I probably should have been doing more of this before, but I didn't. Yeah, one shot kills on the head. At the end, I'll probably go through this range here with the various weapons. So this is a phenomenal weapon, right? One shot kills in the head. 3 shots very easily kills to the body. What could be better? Why would you ever need a better weapon than this? Why would you need something that's better? Well, the Vandal answers that question by saying, but what if he did more damage? But what if one body shot did enough damage that you could just unload? What if a single headshot did 160? What if one single headshot, with no body shots, nothing else, kills an enemy with full armor? An enemy who has spent the money to buy heavy shields or body and armor and helmet in Counter-Strike. Well, you got a lot of damage on your hands, friend. What does it trade off? Well, it trades off accuracy, but not on the first couple shots. If I take this all the way out to 50 and I just crouch and I aim dead center here, it hits almost dead center. It's almost perfect accuracy. You can snipe with this thing. You genuinely can unironically snipe with this gun. I'm not even kidding on that. That is no memes, that is no jokes. You can snipe with this gun. It's not even hard. But if you lay down the trigger, again, my mouse is completely stationary. Any crosshair movement is because of kick, not because of my mouse. Remember as I showed you this earlier? You have, let's count them out, 1, 2, 3 shots that are near perfect aim. Very slight variations. 4th shot's a bit high. 5th shot's already over their heads. 6th shots is already way off. And everything else is just shooting into the sky. You might as well point the gun upwards at that point. You're not hitting anything ever. This makes this a high skill gun. This makes this a gun that requires you to be skilled at the game and the game's mechanics. It requires you to understand how bullet pull works. It requires you to be ducking, because if you are on the hoof, this thing doesn't hit anything. It requires you to know how to aim effectively. It requires more skill out of the player. This is a higher skilled weapon. And the payoff is just pure damage output. Just pure raw damage. And if you have a whole bunch of enemies, maybe you can just pepper the land. Maybe you can just straight up pepper the landscape and get enough kills and get enough lead on the battlefield to get a few kills. Now, they actually disincentivize that slightly in Valorant compared to Counter-Strike by making the Valorant version 25 rounds as opposed to 30. So, just unloading on the field doesn't work as well in Valorant. But you can see right there how just unloading the entire clip with a little bit of control, a little bit of, pulling down the gun to compensate for the kick will fix it. That's why this is this is often considered the strongest weapon in the game. I prefer the Phantom because I think that the silenced effect is underrated. I think a lot of people underestimate the map awareness that having a silenced weapon gives you, that of not betraying your exact location, especially with some of the abilities, which I'm not going to get into a whole lot in this stream because I'm focusing on the gun design. I think they're both very good. Now, what is the Guardian? You saw this. You saw me skip over it. You saw me talk about this. And look at this. I even have a very expensive skin on this one. This is actually the only gun in the game that I spent real $bucks on. I bought one battle pass, which bought me every single other skin that you've seen. This gun here is my favorite gun. And this maps onto the AUG, onto the Bullpup. This is higher damage than the AK, but it's also slower firing and has a better scope. Now, in the original Counter-Strike, the AK didn't have a scope. It didn't have this little reticle aim-down sight scope. I like the fact that Valorant extended that to virtually every gun. I actually am very glad that every gun has, almost every gun has an aim-down sights. Like, even the shotgun. Doesn't it? No. Actually, no, never mind. The shotguns do not. Never mind. Even the cheap pistols, the cheap submachine guns have it. Like, you have aim-down sights on a majority of weapons. But the Guardian actually gets a little bit of zoom. Not much, but a bit. And if I had one complaint about it, it would be I wish it had a little bit more zoom. But the Guardian is slower firing, higher damage. One headshot guarantees a kill even on armor. 3 body shots guarantees a kill even in armor. 1 leg shot and 2 body shots guarantees a kill even in armor. This weapon hits like an absolute truck. This weapon hits like wonderfully, and I adore it. What makes it different? Well, this weapon has no automatic fire. If I hold down the fire button, I get 1 bullet and nothing happens, even if I'm not scoped. Even if I'm not scoped, I don't get any automatic options. Now, I want you to watch this accurate. Let me clear again. I want you to watch this accuracy, though, because this is frankly ridiculous. Okay. Not bad, I'd say. Not bad at all. 1 bullet went a little bit to the side. Every other of my shots was perfect accuracy. This is a very high skill gun. This gun requires you to be good at video games, frankly. I'm gonna go double down. I'm gonna go all the way back here and take this headshot all day long. All day long, nothing but headshots. Okay, I bumped my mouse there. Bam. That level of accuracy is frankly absurd. It's nothing less than ridiculous. And I like it. I like it, but there isn't really a map onto the Krieg or a full automatic map onto the Bullpup. You don't have this, and the scope on both of these are 2x, and the scope on the Guardian is 1.5, I believe. Yeah, 1.5 zoom, as opposed to 1.25 for the other stock weapons, and 1.15 for the submachine guns. Oh yeah, that's the other thing I forgot to mention earlier, is that there are tracers. You can see right here, you can see the bullets flying. You can see the bullets in midair. And on the silenced weapons, enemies cannot see it whatsoever. You can see it a little bit on my side as a player, but the enemy can't see the tracer rounds whatsoever, so you can actually genuinely confuse somebody. If you're shooting them and if they don't have a good bead on it, or if there's a lot of gunfire in the background, you can actually completely blindside somebody and have them not know what direction you're firing from. It's also in Counter-Strike too, as well. In Counter-Strike, the silenced weapons, I don't know if it's actually as true or not, but they feel less sourced. They feel less sound sourced. You know, they feel like the weapons are not as accurate to that. So, as far as these go, you have a weapon that teaches you to be better at the game. You have a high skill weapon that does solid damage and at good mid range, and it's actually cheaper than these. You have an excellent high accuracy weapon for long range. You have a comically high damage weapon that just shoots things and makes them fall over dead. And you don't have a direct map onto the Krieg or the Bullpup. Now, here's where I'm going to drop a complaint. The Bullpup and the Krieg both bridge the gap between rifle and sniper rifle in the same way that the P90 bridges the gap between the rifles and the submachine guns, in the same way that the 5.7 or the dual elites bridge the gap between pistol and submachine gun. You don't have anything between rifle and sniper rifle, and it's even more apparent, much more apparent actually, in Valorant, because you don't have that anything with a 2x zoom. The best you have is that 1.5. So the Bullpup, again, 2x zoom is very good. Now let's talk sniper rifles. We don't get to the sniper rifle lands very easily. In Counter-Strike, you have 4. The Satyr Scout, the Op, the Commando, and the D3. The D3 and the Commando are both factional. Oh yeah, rifles, I think I mentioned it before. Yeah, I did mention it. Okay, yeah. There's actually 3 rifles per faction, with these 2 being paired, with these 2 being paired, and these 2 being paired. But those actually have significant differences between them. The AK and the carbine are actually different weapons significantly. And, yeah. Anyways. The only ones that are paired here for factions are the last 2, are the Krieg and the D3. And those don't map into here at all. So I'm going to go about as far away from that target as I can. I'm going to go hide behind this. You have a scope. The scope is, what is it, actually? It's a 3.5x scope. And you have perfect accuracy every single shot unless you move. Now, you can see right here that when that pink dot in the middle, you see how it disappears when I'm moving? That lets you know when you have perfect accuracy. And we have a guaranteed kill on a headshot, even in armor, and guaranteed kill for an unarmored opponent on a body shot, and 2 shots guaranteed kill on any opponent. But this is a very slow gun. Slow to reload, and 1/1000, 1/1000, 1/1000. About a second between shots maximum. So even though it's perfect accuracy, even though it's very long range, it does have some limitations because you can't kill with a body shot. If you snap a shot, the enemy's going to just stare at you. They're going to stare at you and just, you know, wonder what you're about. This maps exactly onto the Satyr Scout. The Scout and this are the same. The only difference is, and that's why I'm talking about the Valorant one first, is so that you can see it in action instead of just me talking about it first in the Counter-Strike one. The only difference between this and the Scout is that this weapon feels better to use. What do I mean by that? The sound. Listen. That sounds good. That sounds real good. The Scout shot, I believe, is actually a sample of an actual sniper rifle in Counter-Strike. And it's muffled, it's quieter, it doesn't have that bass reverb. It just sounds weaker. Now, you could argue that's better because it is quieter, and again, sound drop-off is very real in that game. but this just feels better to use. It just feels better because it sounds better, and it's also cheaper in this game. This is the same price as the cheap submachine gun, the one with the burst fire, while still being a sniper rifle. So you have a cheap sniper rifle. If you want to snipe, you don't have to save up for a very expensive gun. The Schmidt was a budget option, but not as budget as we're talking here. This do be budget. And that's nice, because if you want to snipe, you have an option even if you don't have all of the money in the world. Even if you're losing the economy game. Even if you're losing the economy game against your opponents, you can still snipe effectively. Then we have the Operator. Now, first of all, I just want to shout out the name. Operator is a great name for this gun. The original gun in Counter-Strike is not Magnum Sniper Rifle. No one ever called it the Magnum Sniper Rifle. They renamed it there because of some legal issue because of licensing, as I believe. Same as all the other guns that were renamed from actual gun names. The original gun in Counter-Strike was the All-Weather Police Sniper Rifle. And that's where you get OP from. And you've probably heard other weapons called OPs in other games that are just like single-shot railguns that are sometimes called OPs. I think one of the Unreal tournaments called their railgun an OP. This gun makes things go away. This gun makes problems go away. Oh, Sapphire, you like my rifles? They're very cute. I do like this. So the Operator is actually just a great name. It's named the Operator. So they incorporated the classic name of the rifle into this. It's not an all-weather police rifle. It's not an AWP rifle. But instead of naming it something dumb like the Magnum Sniper Rifle, this is the Operator. It's so all the players will still call it an OP, because all the players would call it an OP anyways. Okay, so what does this gun do? This gun makes enemies go away. I'm going to show you a headshot. 255 damage, guaranteed kill, even in armor. I'm going to show you a body shot. 150, 150, 150 damage on the body, on center of mass. That's guaranteed kill on an enemy in full armor at center of mass. I don't need to get the headshot. One shot center of mass kills. This is the only gun in the game where you can kill on center of mass single shot. If I shoot the leg, it does 120 damage. If I shoot their pinky toe, it does 120 damage. If I shoot their... Look at that, I'm gonna shoot their finger. But the finger doesn't have a hitbox. I'm gonna shoot their hand. 150 damage. If I shoot their knuckles. If I shoot their knuckles, I am guaranteed a kill on an enemy in full armor. This gun makes enemies go away. Guaranteed one-shot kill on every enemy in the game, unless you happen to land on, like, their toes. In which case they have to be wearing full armor to not be dead. It's good. This effectively does 1 billion damage. There's no mechanical difference between the amount of damage this does and just popping up with 9,009,999 damage for the damage numbers. It just does max damage, functionally. For all intents and purposes, this is a one-hit kill on every enemy. And it's the same in Counter-Strike. This is the exact same gun in Counter-Strike. I think this gun has the least amount of change in Counter-Strike. It has the same load-in time. If I have my pistol out or if I have my knife out, and I want to switch to my sniper rifle, 1,1000, 2,1000, 3... It's full 2,1000... it's full 2 seconds before I can fire. Now, I didn't bring this up before, but weapons do technically have a handling stat. Alright, they actually list the equip speed up there. They say 1.5, but it actually feels like 2 if you included the aim-down sights. But weapons do have a handling speed. Different weapons will make you move at different speeds, with knife letting you run the fastest. And then the pistols letting you run still pretty quick. And then a sniper rifle, you can see the difference on my screen between here, this lumbering pace, and how much quicker I move here. And every kilometer an hour counts. Every little bit of move speed makes a difference in this game. So, the fact that I can't go from running into position with my pistol into shots. Unlike if I, like, just for an extreme example, unlike, you know, going... as opposed to how long that takes. Which, again, makes it so that having a sidearm is very useful. And again, having a diversity of sidearms, that means that we can have a full automatic sidearm, means that we can have a little shotgun. So we can have a long-range instant kill shot, and then, oh no, there's an enemy. And just dump 2 shotgun shells into an enemy that flanked you. I like that. I think that it makes pistols more versatile. I've said that multiple times, and I'm gonna say it as long as it stays relevant. It means that pistols are no longer just kind of ignored after the first couple of rounds, and only there if you have no money. It means that you can have your op and still be able to make a snap decision if you're in a different position. If you're here, and all of a sudden I need to be fighting around this corner, I can go, okay, got the kill, good. Oh no, there's someone right here. And I died because I have to reload, but you see my point. Alright. There is no equivalency for the Krieg or the D3. Those are both semi-automatic sniper rifles. Now, you'll notice on the op, after each shot, I need to chamber a new round. And same as on the Marshall. After each shot, it's a lot faster on the Marshall because, well, the Marshall is going to require 2 shots to kill on many enemies, especially center of mass. It's a lot faster, but you still can't. You still lose your aim down sights. You still are no longer aiming down your sights. You actually come all the way out and have to re-scope. Now, that's not entirely a bad thing, but it is one that's worth pointing out, because there's no semi-automatic sniper rifle in this game whatsoever. The Krieg and the D3 filled a role that is not filled in Valorant, and if there was one change, if there were 2 changes I would ask for Valorant, it would be adding an equivalency of the Krieg, or the D3, they're roughly the same, as a semi-automatic sniper rifle that does less damage than the the Scout, but does not has a rate of fire that does not require you to pull out of your scope. Something that lets you shoot, and I think it was roughly equivalent in shot with this. I think it was roughly like that's how fast you could fire at most. Actually, that is probably a bit too much, but I think that's the cadence you had to go with. If I had one complaint about Valorant's weapons, I would say I have 2 complaints about Valorant's weapons. And the first is that there is no equivalency of that, and those have a good, valuable role in the ability to deal with multiple enemies at long range. Something that you don't really have in Valorant whatsoever. And there's no real map of the Bullpup. As much as I adore this gun here, as much as this gun is my favorite thing in the world, it doesn't map. It doesn't have a real, it doesn't fill the role of the full automatic AUG, and still only has 1.5 scope as opposed to the 2.0 scope to bridge the gap between assault rifles and sniper rifles. Now let's talk machine guns. We have a machine gun in Counter-Strike. There is a machine gun, and it maps almost perfectly onto the Odin. The Odin does one thing, and the machine gun in Counter-Strike does one thing. It says, you know there's going to be 3 people down this hallway. You know that you are going to need a lot of lead in a particular corridor extremely quickly. The Odin says, okay, I'm going to just add lead into this area, and anything in this postal code dies. Anything in that neighborhood is gone. If I go over here and I'm going to hit practice, you can see how accurate it is. I will go into accuracy right here as well, because accuracy is not a strong point. But I do want to point out that it doesn't really pull. So if I clear this off, I'm going to start here. like I have on the other tests, and I'm just going to hold down the mouse button. All movement is from the weapon kick. Like, yeah, it pulls up. It does pull up. But it pulls up a lot more slowly than you'd expect. It pulls up slow enough that I can compensate for it. I can just move my mouse button down and compensate for that. Now, you might be able to see some shenanigans there with where my mouse was, and that's because I understand how the game's mechanics works. I'm pulling my mouse down equal to what the kick is, and the actual location of my cursor doesn't make much of a difference. And this is not about individual hit damage. The individual hit damage of this is fine. It's not great. It's the same as a pistol. It's how many hits you can do so quickly. 4 hits to center of mass kills, 2 hits to the head kills. This right here is actually a good example of what the Odin is for. This is for this kind of scenario where you just have enemies and you need there to be not enemies. You just got a lot of enemies on the field and you just need them to not be there. So then what is this Ares? What is that doing there? And this is a specific tool. Like, in most situations, you'd rather have this AK-47 because of the utility at range, because of the accuracy, because of a dozen reasons. In many situations, you'd rather have the Phantom, with the way it handles at any range, the ability to take down enemies effectively, even at medium distances, with precision. But there are situations where the Odin, which again, at this range here, is not going to kill an individual enemy, but can lay down suppressing fire, 100 rounds of ammunition worth of suppressing fire on an area. And that's the trick I want to talk about with the machine gun. Suppressing fire. It's not for killing people. It's for getting your allies into position. If there are 3 enemies down here, hiding behind nooks, and I come out and go, ah, ha, 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 ah, then guess what? They're going to duck for cover. Because I'm shooting enough bullets that something's going to hit them, and they're not going to want to take it. And so my allies are going to watch me do this, and they're going to run around me and get into position with more accurate rifles and more effective guns. I'm going to clear an area long enough for my allies to get into position. I might get shot. I probably will get shot. But you don't buy this weapon with the intention of racking up 6 kills. You buy this weapon with the intention of setting up your teammates into a better position. The same with an operator. This will get a kill and will rack up 7 kills, but this will also scare an enemy. If you turn a corner and you hear this noise, you turn the other way. Unless you have a long enough range weapon and enough skill to deal with the maniac who has the one hit kill body shot weapon, you think twice about going down this corridor. Same with the judge. Remember what I said before? It's the same idea. If I start coming out with this thing, you back off. If you hear this and see maybe one ally of yours drop, one ally dies, you say, oh geez, I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that. And you back off to cover. Meanwhile, my teammates with more precision tools can follow my lead, come in, and take aim at at wherever they can into cover, and now they're playing on offense. Instead of the... I mean, my opponents are playing on offense. My opponents who are here, waiting for an enemy to come in so they can shoot them down, will go, oh, crap, oh, heck, okay, I'm going to wait for them to reload, I'll reload myself, and as soon as I hear it opening, I'm going to come out again. In that moment when you say, okay, I'm going to come out again, my allies over there are already in position. Where I was the defender before, the defender holding this position, I have become an attacker where I need to reclaim this line of sight. This line of sight is no longer mine to control. There's a lot I could get into with controlling the space and the nuances of like lines of sight and controlling lines. I'm not going to get into all that this stream. That's a little bit too into the weeds for what I'm trying to cover here, which is mostly weapon design. But I want that to be explained for this situation. This is not the weapon that gets all the kills. This is the weapon that flushes out the enemies to go back into cover so that my allies... If I come out here, I get shot by 3 people. I get shot by somebody who's standing there, somebody who's standing there, and somebody who's standing there. If I come out and do this, there's a decent chance that my opponents, even skilled opponents, will say, okay, hold on. All right, now we'll come back. And then my ally comes out and with their weapon and says, okay, I think there's going to be an enemy here. I am going to control this line, or I'm going to control this line and not expose myself to the other line. Now I am the defender. I'm defending this line of sight, and my opponent has to attack and reclaim that line of sight. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see the difference there? So that is something that is very important in Counterstrike, which ends up being a high-level play thing in Counterstrike, and ends up being more obvious in this game. And part of the reason that becomes more obvious is abilities. I haven't really gone into that. I'm not going to go into that a whole lot on the stream. But in summary, I can drop just this one particular character. This one character can drop a camera that lets me see around corners. And even honestly, even if I don't know what's there, even if the camera gets destroyed instantly, if I drop this here, and my camera gets immediately shot by my opponent, guess what? I know there's an opponent there. I immediately know that there's an enemy somewhere in the line of sight for them to kill that camera. And even in a situation like this, like, okay, let me see what's around this corner. Actually, this is a bad example because those are not... There we go. Now, realistically, yeah, it stealths after a few seconds, but when it's out, it comes out of stealth. I can drop these tripwires that I showed before, which creates a line. If my opponent walks through this, it notifies my entire team that they're there and slows them, and if they're not quick on their fingers, they get a concussive stun. The existence of abilities changes Valorant a lot, but it doesn't even need them. Because as I've been explaining, Valorant is already a very different game just by the nature of the guns. The way the guns allow the game to be played already changes it. And then the abilities do things on top of that. And many of the abilities do replace the flush, which is interesting that they still kept this and even gave the Ares here. Now, this is the last gun I'm going to talk about, but let me just real quickly finish on my thought here, is that this idea of the Ares, it is an Odin light. It's just a light version of the Odin that's half the price and fills the same role. This doesn't get a billion kills. This might flush out an enemy and put them into cover, might make them hunker down. Wait, what? No, I'm not sure what's going on here. Why'd it send me here? Hello? Okay, I don't know why Valorant just looks like it crashed. Huh, maybe there's a 90-minute time that you can max out inside of a practice lobby. It'd be kind of weird. Okay. Is it going to respond? Wow, it's like it's not responding at all. There we go, there we go. Yeah, it looks like it kicks you out after 90 minutes. Huh, I did not know that. Okay. So the Ares is an Odin light. It gives you the effect of the Odin in the ability to drop down covering fire and just keep an enemy suppressed in an effective manner. But on a budget. It costs less than the Bulldog. It costs less than the cheapest rifle. So let's look at the damage. I've already stated that the damage is not as important as it, because the damage is not actually the intent. The damage is a side effect. The effect is to scamper your opponents into greater cover. So what does it do for damage? Honestly, fine. 4 hits to the body kills. 2 hits to the head does not kill a fully armored opponent. But you have 43 rounds in the chamber. So what does the pull look like? It immediately started pulling up. it immediately... Hold on. It pulled up there after the first shot. And then right here, by the fourth shot, we were already pretty high. By 10 shots in, and this is a weapon where you usually will lay on the trigger. One of the few weapons where laying on the trigger is actually considered an effective method. You're already shooting over people's heads. But check this out. See this thing here?
Cage triggered.
What if I could just block all line of sight? What if line of sight didn't exist here? What if line of sight just was no longer part of the equation? And this is not an isolated character ability. What if I'm playing Phoenix, and I say, hey,
Going up.
I want to get over here and not have line of sight over there until I'm out here? Or, more realistically, what if I want to go down here and go to the left? Down that path there. But I think someone's going to be sniping me from this angle. Yeah, bye. You don't see me. You can't see me at any point. The abilities in this game make it much easier to break into areas, to break through areas. Like breaking through and hitting that like button. Okay, that's all I got. I won't do it again. And area denial. You want to come through this area? I'm sorry. You will take damage from walking through this area for a good couple seconds. And you saw how long... Oh, I thought it would reflect. Okay. You saw how long it takes to kill somebody. Virtually no time at all. So blocking somebody's path for just 2 or 3 seconds is enough to make a massive difference. If there's a bunch of people about to turn that corner, and I know that...
Careful now.
Bam. Done. Handled.
Careful now.
If I want to break their vision, I have flashbangs. Their screen becomes that for a few seconds.
Careful now.
Oh.
Watch your eyes.
Now, this actually was in Counterstrike. Kind of. This effect here was in Counterstrike. Likewise, if I switch over to this character here.
Satchel out.
This one here. This explosion. That'll kill an enemy. It does half damage to the player, and I already took a big chunk of my health. Boom! That's enough to kill somebody. This was in Counter-Strike as well. Counter-Strike had abilities. Not... Oh, that's funny. I knocked it back. Not in the way that you might be thinking normally, but Counter-Strike absolutely had abilities. Where do I get the whole bunch of them there? Aim sensitivity. What? There we go. I don't know what that's about. Okay. So where was that? In here. I think it's down... Oh, it's not actually going to be in this section. Okay. There's equipment. Okay. So in Counter-Strike you had a high explosive grenade that is very similar to what I showed here, and it's actually stronger in Counter-Strike. You had a flashbang, which is very similar to what I showed you on the other character that blocked out the light for a few seconds, and also in that one, blocked out all sound for a few seconds as well. Counter-Strike also had the ability to buy a defuse kit to increase the speed of defusing the explosives for each round. And you could also buy night vision goggles, which were very ineffective. They were effective in like 2 maps, and those maps were never big in rotation. Like, you could use them on the Italy map, I guess, if you wanted to. No, not Italy. There's one that had a sewer entrance. Anyways, they were mostly not used. So in this game, instead of having the ability to buy grenades, you have character abilities that give you grenades. Or you have character abilities that give you flashbangs. Or you have ultimates. You have bigger abilities like, hey, look at this. I actually have a giant heck-off rocket launcher. I can only use this once every 3 or 4 rounds at most. But I have a big thing to lead up to. And some of these vary wildly in effect, which is very interesting.
Come on,
For example,
go.
Phoenix, you hit this ability, all of a sudden, if I die turning this corner, it's fine. If I die right here, guess what? I go back to wherever I hit the ability. If I hit the ability right here,
Come on, let's go.
and then jump off a cliff, I come back here immediately. And things like that make this game much more unique. So even though
What
Counter-Strike
tries?
had an equivalent of the Flashbang, Counter-Strike had an equivalent of this in the grenades usage. Valorant's real abilities are the ultimates and these uniques, and these walls and the line of sight blockers. Line of sight blocker that we saw before on Cypher is also available on where's Sky? Or Jet. You also have this here where you just create a little ball of poor visibility.
Blocking sight.
Just do this here, bam, hide in here, and you can do that twice per round.
Blocking sight.
And do that here, bam, this is free, that's free. That's how far I can get without any enemy seeing me. It lasts long enough for you to take advantage of it. Not forever, it doesn't last a terribly long time, but enough time for you to get a better angle and have a good angle when that comes out. So these abilities do kind of exist in Counter-Strike. Kind of. Kind of. The abilities, the ultimates, and the uniques, though, make for a very different game. But I mostly wanted to talk about the weapons today. I'm not going to talk about every character and their abilities and all the things that they do with them. I'm not going to talk about sprays. I'm not going to talk about the different maps and how the maps utilize the effects of these abilities. Or the silly things like being able to throw knives as an ultimate. It's cool, and it's what makes Valorant more unique of a game. But I honestly think it didn't even need it. All it needed to be was like Counter-Strike, but better. But they decided to keep on going and add a whole bunch of unique abilities to push the envelope on that. So yes, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. Can I get up there? Probably not. Oh, this character can, because this character can hecking fly. This character can literally fly, which is kind of cool, honestly. And something that would be completely strange in Counter-Strike. But keep in mind, your weapon accuracy goes to heck when you're in the air. If I do this, cool. My weapon accuracy is absolutely tanked. But it's this equivalent of shooting while running. But yeah. Those are the differences in weapons. Now, I have not talked about Counter-Strike Go, Global Offensive. Counter-Strike Go adds a lot of weapons. You have a lot of weapons that honestly don't make that much of a difference. Now, and then some of them are good. Like, some of them are similar. Like, Counter-Strike Go does add a machine pistol into the pistol slot. No shotgun, but you get an automatic pistol. In Global Offensive, you get a extra shotgun or two. You know what those do? Not much. The sawed-off just does higher damage and with a wider spread, and the Mag 7 just does faster rate of fire. In Global Offensive, you get a handful of extra submachine guns that don't make that much difference. A big common thing in Global Offensive is that the weapons are like X but with Y. It's like X but with a slight variation on Y. And that's fine. I mean, they have their place. They're not bad additions. But they don't add a lot to the game. The Go actually does add another machine gun as well. That's interesting. I didn't know that. But I was focusing mostly on Counter-Strike Classic because, again, that's what I used to play on a competitive level. That's what I used to know. That's the video game I used to be good at. And that's why I keep on forgetting to use my abilities in Valorant. Like, legitimately, I will go multiple rounds and forgetting to use any of my abilities because I'm just getting to the Counter-Strike mindset where I'm playing Counter-Strike. That's why lately I've been playing Killjoy. Because her abilities creates a sentry bot an auto turret, and you might be thinking, wow, an auto turret, that sounds powerful. This thing does 6 damage. It really does 6 damage. I'm not even kidding. It does 6 damage per shot. It does nothing. It's a distraction. It's a good distraction. But once I place them, I don't have to worry about them.
Turret out.
Will it shoot the... No. Will it shoot these? Practice? There they go.
Recalling my bot. Placing sentry.
It took... it took 20 shots for them to kill that. That's 2 shots with the bullet to the head, and 4 shots to the body. So this thing does not do damage. Anyways, I like this character because I can set my abilities and then forget about them, and I don't have to be like, forget about it. And my last ability really is just a AoE grenade, which is similar enough to the Counterstrike stuff. But yes, I enjoy Valorant. I think it's a good game. But what I think is more interesting is the game design differences between the two. Rather than is Valorant good, or is Valorant... I'm not going to say it's better or worse, but it is undeniably different. And that difference, I think, is important to pay attention to. Because some of the differences are major. You know what you can't do in Counter-Strike? Send out a wolf. You cannot send out a fox wolf to jump and bite an enemy and disrupt their aim for a few moments and give them motion sickness. And you know what? I'm glad you can't, because if I was only playing Counter-Strike, I wouldn't want my opponent to be able to do that, because Counter-Strike is not the kind of game where that is the status quo. That's not the kind of game where you want that to be what's happening. So I am not saying that either game is better, but I will say that some of the design choices in their weapons are better. Oh, you see what I'm saying? I'm not going to say that Valorant or Counter-Strike is better. So if you've been waiting for me this whole stream for me to say which game is a better video game, I am so sorry to disappoint you. I think they are both good games and they serve different purposes. But Valorant has a better low end. The cheaper weapons are better at teaching you how to play the game. The stealth mechanics in Valorant with the silencers are better. The Bucky it's not, the rifles are more versatile. The pistols give you a lot more diversity in your options. But you don't have a good mid-range option. You don't have a strong, sustainable long-range option in the form of the semi-automatic sniper rifle. And what you lack and what you gain in abilities, you also lose in abilities, frankly. What you gain in abilities, you also lose in abilities. You need to play, at least competitive, at a competitive level, to know the abilities of every single one of these characters. You have to know all of their abilities, because if you are playing against Neon, and you don't know what Neon does, you lose. Because Neon will do this, and you won't know how to handle it. Because Neon will drop one of these on you, and you'll say, wait, what am I supposed to do about that? Neon will be somewhere faster than you could possibly have gotten.
Go, go, go.
Neon will do this and just rush a site faster than you could have expected them. You need to know every single ability in this game. Because if your opponent has Yoru, guess what they can do? Look at this. I can create a decoy character that will walk around a corner. And, yeah. If I create this decoy and I send it down there, you reveal yourself if you shoot it. Like, it makes the game less accessible. So as much as the weapons themselves make the game more accessible, the abilities make it less accessible. Does it balance out? I think it does. I think it does balance out pretty well at the end of the day. I think both of them are good games. Counter-Strike is what it wants to be, and Valorant is what it wants to be, and these are two separate games that can both comfortably exist in the same gaming space without having to say one is better than the other in any meaningful way. They're different games. But they're similar enough that we can draw comparisons. The gameplay, the teamwork of the gameplay is similar enough that comparisons can and frankly should be drawn. And, well, I hope that in your games, if you are a game developer yourself, that you can use this knowledge. because everything I've said is stuff that should apply virtually to every first-person shooter. Not every first-person shooter needs the same... Not every first-person shooter needs the same thing. You don't need the same set of weapons, and you probably don't want them. The fast time to kill is probably a bad idea for most of your games. But it's important to know the difference between them and to see what weapons can change between different playthroughs, between different games, between different needs, between different plans. Thank you so much for joining me here. I am going to head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/Jade the Kobold, where I'm going to be playing some of this video game. This stream was entirely for game design, and I know I have a lot of game designers in the audience. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if there's anything that I missed, if there's anything that you want me to touch on or discuss. If you want more content like this or less content like this, let me know. Because, well, if I don't know, then I don't know what to make. And if I don't know what to make, then people, you know, I'm not going to make the stuff that you want. And I want to make stuff that you guys like, so let me know what you thought about this in the comments. And look at this beautiful gun. It's non-binary colors. I'm happy with this. Okay. I could do another stream about other aspects of this game. Like I said before, I used to play Counterstrike competitively, before, and I do know about things. I'm not great anymore. I've lost all of my skill, and you'll see that if you head over to Twitch right now. But, but if you're watching this here, I hope that this has been of interest to you. So, thank you for your time, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Cheers, friends.